Hello, Live at Fivers. It's Peter McLaughlin with BlueSky Hypnosis. This is Friday Live at 5. Today we're going to be talking about social anxiety, how to relieve social anxiety using hypnosis. Before we get started, just the regular disclaimers. I'm not a doctor. I am not a psychologist. I am a hypnotherapist and a life coach. Everything that I talk about comes from 16 years of working one-on-one with people. If you have any serious psychological, physical issues, you obviously want to consult your licensed professional. If you have comments and questions, please put those in the chat bar. That's what makes this interesting, at least for me, because it becomes more of a dialogue. You guys take me in all kinds of cool directions that I otherwise certainly would not have gone in had it been a monologue. So with that being said, let's just jump into this. I was thinking about social anxiety earlier today, and I'm really wondering what you think. So my feeling is that social anxiety, at least the way my clients describe it to me, shares a lot in common with stage fright, with fear of speaking in public. And what I've noticed with that kind of fear and with a lot of aspects of social anxiety is that the focus is inward. In other words, the person who has the anxiety in a social situation, the thought process is focused inward. It's something like, I don't feel like I fit in. Maybe I'm not dressed the right way. Maybe I don't look the way I think I should look. Maybe I'm not smart enough, or I don't know what these other people know. And consequently, it's almost like, and I know that it's not done on purpose, but it's almost like a narcissistic approach, if you will. And again, not done on purpose, but when the focus is all on self, then we could say that's sort of narcissistic. And it has seemed to me, and it is borne out in sessions that I do with people, that when the focus goes outside, it goes on to the other people. In other words, what's your name? How are you doing? Why are you here? What's going on with you? Tell me more about that. What are your hopes, dreams, and ambitions and whatnot? That the pressure comes off of the person in question, and the focus is placed on the other person. And that kind of often relieves that kind of anxiety. Again, if we take public speaking as an example, when the person who's standing up on the stage or behind the lectern is really focused on how they feel, what other people are thinking of them, how they're dressed, how they're sounding, what they're talking about, then the anxiety seems to just get higher and higher and higher. But when it's on the audience or the people to whom they're addressing, I'm here to serve you. What do you need? How can I help you? The intensity of that all begins to come down. I talked about in the little teaser the hardwired aspect of a human being that contributes, if not creates, social anxiety in certain circumstances, if not all. And that hardwired aspect, I would say, has to do with fitting in. It has to do with being a member of a herd. I say all the time that human beings are herd animals. We're more like dogs and less like cats. And for human beings, not being accepted by the herd, not being accepted by the tribe is equated with death. Since ancient times, the worst thing it is said that you can do to a person is to expel them from the tribe, is to reject them from society. And in ancient times, that's what happened oftentimes, is a person would be banished. And again, what psychologists will talk about, what social scientists and behavioral scientists will talk about, is that it's actually worse psychologically for a person to be banished, to be ostracized, than it would be to be imprisoned or executed. And speaking of imprisonment, the worst thing you can do to a person in prison is to put them in solitary confinement. I don't know if it's the International Treaty of The Hague talks about solitary confinement being, I don't know if they call it a war crime or a human rights violation or what, but it's recognized that isolation for a human being is horrible. And when people are stressed, when they're frightened, that hardwired mechanism tells them, get with the group, because that's where you will find safety. And so I think a lot of social anxiety is this fear of not fitting in, and that's this hardwired part of us. And the more fear a person feels, the greater the anxiety, perhaps, of not fitting in. That on some level, as I mentioned before, you could argue that to the deeper psyche, to the subconscious mind, not fitting in could be equated with death. So, from the earliest ages, especially the earliest ages, when we can't provide for ourselves, we can't shelter ourselves, we can't clothe ourselves, we can't feed ourselves, we can't take care of our, activities of daily living, our medical needs, we're completely dependent on our family. And so our need to fit in with them for protection is very, very high. And this, I think, turns up in these social situations. And look, we've all been there. If you turn up at a formal event and you're wearing, ripped jeans or, a t-shirt that says something silly on it, you're going to feel totally out of place, very uncomfortable. And the same in reverse. If everyone else is dressed kind of casually and you're overdressed, it can feel very uncomfortable, like you don't fit in. Walking into a group of people and you don't know anyone, it's going to create a lot more discomfort than if you roll in with a group of people that you already know. All right, let's see who is here and if there are any questions or comments. So AJ, shout out to you. Glad you're here, as well as Cookie Thieves and Estelle. Barbara Shopper Doll, welcome. Good to see you. Here is AJ saying, Peter, what could be the reason there are no previous unpleasant experiences, but a 6-year-old child feels anxious to meet new people, including same-age children? Okay, that's a great question. And I guess a couple of things. One is that there could be a past lifetime for that 6-year-old child where they had a very traumatic experience in a group setting. So a client that I had a few years back, a doctor, had this intense anxiety about interacting with other people. Now, this could just be one person. It could even be like a patient. It could be making a promotional video for this doctor's practice. And the root cause of this was an execution. This person was executed in a past lifetime. It looked like, from what he was saying, it looked like it was during the French Revolution. He was in one of those little wooden carts, a trundle cart or something like that was led up to the guillotine, and he was led up onto the platform that is very much like a stage, and people, thousands, hundreds, whatever it was, people watching all of this, maybe shouting, jeering, and head in there and head cut off. And so for him, on a very deep subconscious level, anytime he was presenting, anytime he was, quote unquote, in public, or the subject or the object of scrutiny, he would start to feel this intense panic on the inside. And when we healed that past lifetime where he was executed, he said to me afterwards, he was A-okay. He was able to do promotional videos. He was able to engage with clients. He was able to go into public forums and give talks about his practice and so on. It was like, we got the root problem, we fixed the root problem, and very quickly he was able to reverse all this. So back to the 6-year-old AJ. It could be, I'm saying could because I don't know for sure, that the 6-year-old might have brought something in with her or with him into this lifetime, and they're feeling anxiety in those circumstances because of a past life. It could also be that one of the caregivers feels anxious in social situations. If that's the case, then for the 6-year-old, this may be the 6-year-old's way of fitting in with the caregiver, right? Like matching with the herd, with the people that will keep him or her safe, and And the 6-year-old is taking on the anxiety, the social anxiety, or the fear of the caregiver. Does that make sense how that works? Right back to that whole fitting in. That could be the case. What else? I mean, it's probably far less likely that the 6-year-old has some kind of a spiritual entity attached to him or her, but that's possible too. So I guess the bottom line is that until we start investigating, we don't know for sure what's going on in the psyche, the subconscious mind of that child. And I guess this is also sparking something else, which is I have 3 kids and they're all adults now. But like many people who have more than one child, they're born into the same family. They have the same genetics, the same DNA, and so on. And they're fed the same food. They live in the same house. In our case, they wore the same clothes even because we kind of handed them down until they got to a certain age. And yet all 3 of them had these and have these remarkable differences to their personalities, to their likes and dislikes, to the things that they're afraid of, to the things that they're really good at, to the things they're not so good at. And they all came from the same stock. So my explanation for this is that they brought things in with them from not just one other lifetime, but from many different lifetimes. And so back to the 6-year-old, one of the things that he or she could have brought into this lifetime was this fear of meeting new people or this fear of being in groups. Hopefully that makes sense. And thanks for asking the question. All right. Let's see. Here's Cookie Thieves says, I was wondering if having nightmares would be part of your anxiety. Well, yeah, I think nightmares are part of different kinds of anxiety. So I used to be a professional actor. My wife was too. And there's a phenomenon that is familiar and, as far as I know, consistent amongst all actors, most actors, which is called the actor's nightmare. And the actor's nightmare is you're on stage and you've got a costume on and there's an audience out there and you may or may not recognize the other members of the cast and everyone's looking at you, and you realize as you go out there that you didn't go to all the rehearsals, or you didn't go to any of the rehearsals, or you know part of your script but you don't know the whole thing, and the play is moving on, and you realize that at any moment you're going to make a complete fool out of yourself because you just don't know what you're doing. And as I say, this is a dream that all the actors that I knew back when I was doing it would have from time to time. I had it myself. My wife would have it. This is very, very common. So, can a dream be tied in with the anxiety? Absolutely. And I would say back to the acting thing that on some level, it's not super normal maybe for to stand up on stage in front of a bunch of other people. And back to that thing about fitting in and maybe making a mistake or what have you, that most actors feel some degree of tension or anxiety before you go on the stage. I think it's probably true with professional athletes, that you're about to get on a stage of sorts, and you're about to compete, and you're about to perform in front of all these people. And there's a certain amount of tension or anxiety that goes along with it. You may call that butterflies or whatever. I have a house outside of Buffalo, New York. We sold it, but we're still in it for now. And we watched the Buffalo Bills last night, and the Buffalo Bills quarterback, Josh Allen, reportedly early in the game likes to be hit. He likes to run with the ball so someone hits him, because when he gets hit, it brings him fully into the experience, brings him fully into the game, and takes him out of his jitters. It's kind of a remarkable way of getting out of the jitters, but it's just a way of illustrating how I think everybody feels this to a degree in certain circumstances. And I think with some people, they spend a lot of time resisting that. They're like, don't put me in that situation. It is said that which you resist persists. When you push on a wall, it feels like the wall is pushing back on you. You push harder, it feels like it's pushing even harder against you. And so I think resisting certain things actually enhances or multiplies the amount of stress and anxiety that you feel, rather than just facing it, doing it, submitting to it or surrendering to it, whatever that experience is, rather than avoiding it, like the plague. And then eventually when you have to confront it, you've built up so much energy around it. I think it just exacerbates it. I think this is one of the things, back to public speaking, around Toastmasters, is that they do kind of an immersion therapy, if you will, that they just keep having people in a supportive environment. In other words, everyone in Toastmasters is wanting to learn how to speak in public, and many, if not all of them, have a fear of speaking in public. And they speak for each other over and over again. And the more they do that, the more the subconscious mind gets used to this phenomenon, this situation. It's no longer foreign to them. And that's how they begin to feel more at ease, is by this kind of immersion therapy, if you will. All right, let's see what else we got here. But both really good questions. So Cookie Thieves says, I had a nightmare yesterday morning that I couldn't wake up from. It was so horrible. That sounds, well, I mean, if we were working together, I would really want to dissect that nightmare. Determine if a spiritual entity is attached to you and that's what's causing the nightmare, or if it's calling your attention to some kind of old trauma that's rising to the surface and needs to be resolved, if it's trying to get your attention in some other way. You may wish to go to my channel on YouTube, BlueSky Hypnosis, and just look at the most recent track that I made a few weeks back on spiritual entity attachment. In that track, it teaches you how to scan and figure out if you have an entity attached to you, and then it takes you through the process of removing that entity. So that's the first thing I think I would look for with the whole nightmare thing. All right, but good luck to you. That can't be fun. Okay, so this is Gertie, who says, I start swearing like a pig when I'm anxious. I think Gertie means sweating. I'm going to guess that that's sweating. And that, when people start having that sort of sweating thing, heart racing, what else? They could feel nauseous, they could feel tense, or they could start shaking, their voice could begin quivering. This is all the subconscious mind telling the person, you are not safe in this environment. And the conscious mind is looking at the environment and saying, I just got asked a question at a company meeting. This is not going to hurt me. Or, I'm just at a cocktail party with a friend of mine and I'm meeting some new people. But because of some earlier experience, the subconscious mind is saying, this is not safe. Kind of like that doctor I gave you the example of, where in a past lifetime, he was led up onto a platform, a stage, and he was executed in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people. And so the trigger is anything that triggers, in his case, anything that triggered back to that earlier experience would fire off this, this is not good. And you could see how anything that would trigger that off would send a person into sweating profusely, or shaking, or nausea, or a sense of doom, or their heart racing, or whatever it is. So yeah, there's probably something, Gertie, in your past, either earlier in this life or in a former lifetime, that when you get triggered, your subconscious is saying, this is really, really dangerous. And like a really, really dangerous situation, you wouldn't be surprised if you started sweating like crazy, or shaking, or nausea, or all these other things. Now, the other thing that's really common for people with social anxiety and with things like fear of public speaking would be, and I put this in the teaser, experiences earlier in this life that oftentimes go back to an experience at school. So if you're in the 3rd grade and your math teacher calls you up to the front of the classroom and says, Susie, I want you to solve this math problem up here on the chalkboard or on the whiteboard. And Susie attempts to solve the problem and makes a mistake. And, the teacher says, no, how could you have made that mistake? We went over this in class so many times. What's wrong with you? And all the other kids laugh. It's this public humiliation. And again, the bottom line of public humiliation is that that hardwired part of us may say, oh, great, now I'm going to be ostracized by the group. I'm going to be banished. I'm going to be alone. I equate that on a subconscious level with death. This is horrible. I never want to have this experience again. And something I don't want to use the word benign because it's not a really nice thing to do. And I don't know if teachers are still doing this to kids. They probably are, some of them anyway. But I remember this happening when I was in grade school. They don't realize it, but they're creating a lifetime potentially of anxiety that gets triggered by situations that in the subconscious mind harken back to being in the classroom, being humiliated in front of a group of people. And the solution to this is, when I work one-on-one with people, is taking them in their consciousness in hypnosis back to that moment at which they were humiliated, and going back as the adult and essentially rescuing the child. Oftentimes, if it's an example where the teacher orchestrated this, is bringing the teacher into their consciousness and have the adult talk to the teacher and say, look, you probably didn't realize this, but by behaving this way and by criticizing a small child in front of the whole classroom, and the whole classroom laughs, this is what you created. You created a cascade. And so the teacher in the consciousness is almost always apologetic. And they apologize to the child. And then we redo the scene in their mind. So to the subconscious mind, anything that's vividly imagined is real. This is why when you watch a movie, you can have physiological responses to it. So when we redo the scene in the mind of the client, and we have forgiveness that's going on, then what gets imprinted in the subconscious mind of the client is a new memory. So in this sense, it's like we're changing the timeline, so that when the trigger happens, the mind doesn't go back to the whole class is laughing at me and I feel humiliation and I feel like I'm being banished, I don't fit in. The mind rather goes back to the new memory that we've created of the class being supportive, for example, right? Like other kids saying, class, can you help her? Because this is a mistake anyone could make, right? And it turns it from humiliation into something that's constructive, and it changes the memory. So that can also relieve that kind of anxiety if that were the root cause. Alrighty, let's see here. Cookie is saying that another thing that happens is when I'm anxious, I clear my throat a lot. Okay, so when there's issues with the throat, that's where I want to look into, are there any spiritual entities attached? And this is their thing. Was this person hanged in a past lifetime in front of a group of people? Because if that's the connection, then we definitely want to heal that. We definitely want to clear that out. AJ says, I got it. Cool. Awesome. And here's Barbara Shopper Doll. She says, speaking to an audience on stage or a group of people is not one of my strong suits. I was told that in a past life, I died by public execution. You think it's linked? Absolutely. 100%. If that's true, if you died by public execution in a past lifetime, then just think of those scenarios. We've all seen, those kind of lurid old photographs of someone being hung, for example, or someone having their head chopped. Well, that was earlier in the photographs, but we've all seen movies. We get the idea of how this works. That the condemned person is, well, first of all, they're usually tried. So a trial is actually kind of like theater. It's kind of like the stage or a show, right? There are characters, like there's a judge and there's a jury and there's a bailiff, and there sometimes, I don't know, going back far enough if this is the case, but usually there's some kind of an advocate and there's a prosecutor, and they often wear different kinds of costumes, even today. Why do judges have to wear black robes? What's that all about? Why can't they just wear a suit? No, they have to wear a costume, and they sit up higher than everyone else. And a witness goes into the witness box. Is that what we call that? And they swear on a Bible. And it's like this whole ritual that's going on. And there's a gallery, an audience that's watching this show. And the spotlight comes on the accused person. Everyone's looking at them. I mean, that's got to be pretty anxious, right? You have to swear to God and all these other things. And then if the person's convicted, then they're led, and I'm talking about in the past when there were public executions, they're led, probably through the audience, through the crowd that has assembled to watch this, horrific thing about to occur. And the condemned is often led up onto a platform of some kind, like a stage, and they go through the ritual there, and they're different characters, and then a noose, for example, or they chop their head off, or they get the guillotine or something like this. And this is all done in public with an audience. So if that's the case, barbershopper doll, when you get behind a lectern, when someone gives you a microphone, when you're standing on a stage and there's a group of people in front of you, your subconscious mind's going to go, holy shit, it's happening again. This intense moment of anxiety. And like the doctor that I referenced earlier, that was a client of mine who was executed in a past lifetime. And when we cleared that, when we healed that execution in that lifetime, all of a sudden it was like, no more problems. And I don't think he became like this, leader of Toastmasters or anything, but all the things that he couldn't do before, he now can do. So I would encourage you to definitely look deeper into this and see if indeed you were executed in a past lifetime, and if that is either the cause, the root cause, or a contributing factor, how could it not be, of anxiousness or anxiety with public speaking today. And I would be interested if you feel social anxiety in any other circumstances. So let us know if you're willing, like, walking into a store and interacting with a clerk, or meeting new people at some kind of function or an event, or if you're called upon in a less formal setting to talk, if you're at church or if you're at work or there's a meeting or whatever. I'd love to hear, if this affects those other areas, but certainly, look into that past lifetime. That is most likely. Thanks for sharing that. Here's more of Barbershopper Doll. It says, my anxiety stems from being the baby of the family, not able to keep siblings' attention growing up. When I public speak, I fear I won't keep the audience attention, even if I feel confident. Okay, so yeah, that could easily be. If that's the issue, if it's because you feel like you're not going to keep their attention, then we just want you to find the root cause. And the root cause could be, as you say, growing up as the youngest sibling, but the root cause could be a past lifetime. There could be some other circumstance that was sort of seared into your mind when people ignored you, when they walked away from you. Maybe you needed help or something, or you were trying to hold their attention and they just laughed at you, or whatever it was. It could have been school, could have been earlier in life with your family, it could have been a past lifetime. And the key here is I would suggest, use a pendulum. There's a video on my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis, subscribe if you haven't, that will teach you how to use a pendulum. And just watch that video and then use a pendulum and ask those questions. Is the root cause of my anxiety, my fear that I won't keep the attention of other people when I'm speaking publicly, is that from a past life? Is it from earlier in this life? If you get earlier in this life, just say, was it created in my family? And then see if you can figure out at what age was it created. Was it created when you were indoors or outdoors? Was it the summer? And you might be able to nail down when that happened. And then we would want to do a hypnotic regression to that time and neutralize the exact event when that belief was installed in your mind. All right, so very cool. Thank you. Here's AJ. AJ says, Peter, someone being an introvert with lesser need for social interaction, but due to the nature of the job, if they got, you do the opposite. It can also cause unease, anxiety. How do you deal with that? Okay, so here's the way I'm reading that. I'm going to assume it's you. Maybe it's not, but let's say that you're saying you are an introvert and you got a job that requires you to be something other than an introvert, a job that requires you to be an extrovert. So let's just say you're the head of human resources, or you're in sales. Okay, all right. This is all really good. I want to take your mind for a moment back to something I said earlier in today's broadcast, and that is acting. So if you delve into the biographies of some of the really well-known actors in kind of that golden age of Hollywood, and I would say that was like the 40s, 50s, 60s, many of those actors will say that they had horrible stage fright. Many of those actors will say that they are introverts. And yet we're like, well, how did you command the attention of an audience of thousands in person, night after night, or millions if you were, on film? Like, and what they will say, I think, is they stepped into a different character. And if you think, like I was saying, how a football game is a show. It's like live theater. A trial, it's a show. People wear costumes, and there's kind of a ritual where these different things happen, and everyone knows their part. Everyone plays their part. And I would go further and say, you, me too, all of us, are playing a part right now. That was created for you in a way. And part of it was how you reacted to different things that were created for you. I mean, you might say, yeah, I'm an introvert and I'm really good at this, but I'm not good at that. And in this circumstance, this is what I do. In this circumstance, this is what I don't do. And the deeper you get into that character, the more it becomes you. So what I'm saying is that, number one, when you feel anxiety in certain aspects of your job, if we were working together, we would go deeper into those certain aspects. There's something in hypnosis called an affect bridge. You can use the feelings of anxiety and trace that feeling back in time to when you first felt that feeling. So in this sense, we could go back to the root cause of what's causing that anxiety about being, in quotation marks, an introvert, and we could potentially resolve something earlier in time. Secondarily, we could, in essence, create a new character for you. One of the ways of doing this, incidentally, is to go into a past lifetime, regress you into a past lifetime where you have certain skills you may not have now. They may be dormant. To go into a past lifetime where you were really good in that circumstance that you need to be really good at work. And not just watch your earlier self from third person engaging in this kind of skill, but to get inside the body of your earlier self and to feel what it's like to be really competent in this other way. Here is something that you all can do this at home, okay? And that is, you sit in a chair, close your eyes, and just think of your favorite movie. So I'll just tell you what mine is and how I would do this exercise. So my favorite movie is Somewhere in Time. It's about time travel and about this man finding his lost love from another era. And many of you may be familiar with this film. And I did one or two lives on this film that you can go back and watch it if you want. And you then go to the moment, the most powerful moment for you in your most favorite film. So for me, it's when he's first looking at this picture of her and he's just overcome by something about her picture. So when my eyes are closed and I go to that film and then I go to that scene where he's looking at her picture, the next thing is, what feeling do I feel if I'm in his body looking at that picture? So for me, it's this like overwhelming feeling of love, super powerful, like washing all over me. And then you take that feeling of love and put it into your own body so you can feel all of that love. And then you take that internal resource and you bring it to some kind of situation, call it an obstacle. For you, it would be this certain activity at your job. And for me, being empowered with that feeling, it's like I can do anything. So in a sense, this is like stepping into a different character. You are stepping into the protagonist of your favorite film in a scene where they're overcoming an obstacle. Because let's face it, every single film has certain characteristics that are always the same. The hero is always going to have an obstacle that they have to overcome. And as I say, in a way, you're stepping out of the character you've been playing. Let's say you're 32 years old. You're going to step out of the character you've been playing for 32 years by stepping into a different character. A different character you already resonate with because there's a reason that's your favorite movie, and that the protagonist of that movie, the one you identify with from that movie, is your favorite character in your favorite film. Try it out. Tell me what you think just by doing it at home, first of all, and see if it's powerful. And then when you go to work, when you walk through the doors of your office or you walk into the situation, step into this other character, right? This character that in my case is just filled with all this love, and then see what it's like to take on whatever those challenges are. I would love to hear back from you, any one of you, if you decide to take this up. And if you have questions about the mechanics of it, just ask. All right. Let's see, But really, really good question, AJ. Appreciate you asking it. And here is Estelle. Estelle says, what if your anxiety from being with other people who are extroverted causes you to shut down and self-isolate instead of going out with them? I don't feel comfortable with them. Okay. So I guess the question is it important for you to be able to go out with these people who are extroverts, these people who in their presence causes you to shut down? Because if it's not important to you, then who cares? So let's assume that it's important to you for some reason, that you want to be able to go out with them. You want to be able to participate in socializing with these people. Let's think about the language that you use here, because it's really important. What if your anxiety from being with other people who are extroverted causes you to shut down and self-isolate instead of going out with them? So and this is so common, Estelle, we talk about ourselves as though we are machines, and that when somebody pushes my buttons, 1, 2, 3, I have the same response every time. Well, why would you have the same response? Why would it cause you to do anything other than you've been programmed like a computer that when I hit Control, Alt, Delete, I always get the same result in my computer because it's been programmed that way. How would I change it if I hit Control, Alt, Delete? I want something else to happen. I'd have to reprogram it. So I would say the only reason that you have this automatic response is because you've been programmed that when you're in the presence of extroverted people, your role is to shut down because you can't compete with them. Something like that. So once again, I think it would be important to go back to the original moment at which you received that programming. Did you receive it in your family of origin? Did you receive it when you were at school at an early age? Did you receive it in a past lifetime? And we neutralize that. And then we reprogram, which is when I'm with extroverted people, I become extroverted. When I'm with extroverted people, I become very happy. I become very excited. I feed off their energy. right? I absorb their energy and I take it into myself. Maybe that would be. Maybe it's something else, but you get the idea of what I'm talking about. But I guess the important key here is that because it's happened so many times for you, right? You were programmed this way, and then it was reinforced over and over again, and now it just feels like, hey, it's just automatic. When I'm in this situation, a button gets pushed, I automatically respond in a different way. All this means is that you were programmed. And if you want to have a different experience, one of the most powerful ways of doing this is to reprogram. The way I would do this is I would do a regression to the moment you were programmed and reverse it at its core, at its root, and then layer in the new programming. So it's like if you had something written on a board which says anxiety, you erase that, and then you write in new words. And the new words might be happy, joyful, energized, comfortable, calm, what have you. And that second piece is at the root of a lot of the content that I produce and put on my YouTube channel. So I've got content for public speaking, being comfortable public speaking. So it's really just flooding the subconscious mind with, you are good at public speaking. When you are public speaking, you put your focus, instead of on yourself, you put it on the audience, you put it on the people you're talking to, so that you're not back in that kind of narcissistic place. And I don't say this in a pejorative sense. I say this just because that's natural to go to. If a person's in pain, they're going to focus on themselves. If a person's anxious, they tend to focus on themselves, but this makes things worse. So, if you don't have the wherewithal to go back to the original moment at which you were programmed, you can at least do the second part of this, and that's kind of conventional hypnosis, if you will. You're in a hypnotic trance, and you keep receiving these suggestions for a new way of behaving in certain circumstances. And this is probably a good point to say this, that I am working on a track right now about resolving social anxiety. And I'm going to be posting this as soon as I can finish it. I've already recorded the track, but I just need to edit it and then do some other work before I can upload it. But keep an eye on the channel, subscribe if you haven't, and that'll be coming up soon. And you can certainly work with that track. And repetition is key with this kind of approach. You want to keep doing it over and over and over again until it seeds into your subconscious mind. And then your subconscious says, wait a second, it used to be that we weren't so good in social situations, but now we are. This is really cool. We're good in social situations. So when you're in that situation, you can have an automatic response that's different than the old one because it has accepted the new programming. All right, awesome question. Thank you for that. Let's see, here is Jamie Brooks says, my throat chakra gets blocked a lot. I can email you to get a session sometime. Absolutely. You can do that. You can go right to you can go right to my website, which is BlueSkyHypnosis.com. And from there, you can book a free 20-minute call just to explore and see if this is something you want to do. If you really want to work with me, you can also book a session directly from there. So yeah, feel free to do that along with anybody else who wants to work with me. But appreciate that. Cookie Thieves says, I have a fear of hospitals and I'm having surgery next month. A surgery that I've been waiting for so long. I'm both scared and anxious. Yeah, I mean, getting surgery is scary. It is, especially if it's general anesthesia. And one of the interesting things about surgery, as far as the subconscious mind is concerned, is that, and I should probably do a whole show on this, is that if you're prepared with hypnosis prior to doing the surgery, and then you use hypnosis as soon as possible after the surgery is over, and even better, if you can listen to something while you're going through the procedure, according to studies, you recover about 20 to 30% faster than if you're not prepared with hypnosis. And according to studies, people who've been prepared with hypnosis and listened during the procedure, the average time of the operation actually decreases significantly. I can't remember exactly how much it is, 20 minutes or something like that. But part of the reason for this is that even under general anesthesia, when the scalpel enters the skin, the subconscious mind feels like it's being attacked, and it tenses up. So even under general anesthesia, according to this research that I've read, a person still tenses up. And when you tense up, it does more damage to the tissues than if you're relaxed. So people who've been prepared with hypnosis and can listen while the procedure is taking place actually are relaxed. And because they're relaxed, the operation goes smoother, generally, faster, and less anesthesia is used, and the person remains comfortable. Now, anesthesia is toxic to the body. So if you use less anesthesia, it means your body doesn't have to purge all that anesthesia after the operation, and a person recovers faster. So one of the things that's seeded into a person's mind when you're preparing them for surgery is that I'm doing this for my greatest and highest good. I feel comfortable when I go into the hospital because I know that by doing this, I'm going to be relieved of this old thing that was bothering me. And now I'm going to be able to do this thing that I really want to do that I haven't been able to do. And I know that I'm safe when I'm in the hospital. I know that I'm safe working with Dr. XYZ. I know that the whole staff is working to help me. And another thing is that every touch is a healing touch. Every word that's spoken is a healing word. And only true healing words are acted upon. Because let's face it, sometimes, in surgery, doctors say all kinds of things. And a person, when they're in general anesthesia, is totally suggestible. So if they say, oh, this looks like a mess, or this person doesn't, whatever they say, it's going to go directly into the subconscious mind. And as I say, I should probably do a whole Friday Live on this topic because it's fascinating and there's a lot of warrens that we can explore. But the more you can convince yourself prior to going in, so you can even do some visualization, close your eyes, do some visualization before you go to sleep at night, first thing when you wake up in the morning, that this is for your health. This is designed to help you, that everybody in the hospital is there to help you, that they're competent professionals, that they know what they're doing, that it's okay for you to relax. It's almost as if you were speaking to like a 4-year-old who was going to go in and have surgery and was really worried and scared about this. You would spend a lot of time saying to her, look, you're going to be safe. I'm going to be there with you. These doctors are really kind, loving people. They're really highly educated. They have a lot of experience. They know what they're doing, and they're going to be really nice to you. And you have nothing to be, you have everything to be happy about with doing this. And after it's over and after you have a little bit of time to recover, you're going to feel so much better than you felt before. And you're going to be able to go outside and play. And you know how much you love to be on the swings. You know how much you love to go to the beach. Well, all of that is going to be even more fun. So in the morning and in the evening, with your eyes closed, like in bed, speak to that 4-year-old inside of you that is your subconscious mind. And keep reassuring her that she's going to be safe by doing this. It will have an impact. I also have a track on my YouTube channel, which is for surgery. And I believe that one is for recovery. So if a loved one or if the hospital staff can put headphones on you as soon as possible after the procedure is over, this will help you with your recovery. If no one can do that, then have your smartphone and headphones there with you. So as soon as you are able, you can press play yourself and put the headphones on and keep listening to that until you're fully recovered. This will help you managing pain after the surgery. And again, I should do a whole topic on this one, but thank you and good luck to you. Let's see. Oh, okay. So Cookie Thieves is also saying, I've been watching horror stories and maybe this is linked to my nightmares. I'm never watching horror again. Yeah, I'm going to give you a round of applause for that one. because you understand now that garbage in is garbage out. So if you ate Twinkies for every meal and you started feeling sick and you started becoming obese, you would know why, because the garbage you were taking in was affecting the output. Horror movies, yeah, you're showing them to the 4-year-old who lives inside of you called your subconscious mind. And imagine if you showed horror movies to a 4-year-old over and over again. It's going to have an effect, and it can be really, in some cases, devastating. So yeah, the nightmares could absolutely be coming from that. And I applaud you for coming to that realization. Good for you. Megan Watkins says the courtroom is very Masonic. Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about the Masons, but I know that they wear costumes, they have rituals. If you go into a Masonic temple, they've got a room that looks a lot like a stage. It looks a lot like a theater to me. So yeah, I don't doubt that at all. Thank you for that. Shay says, I've had a gym teacher purposely do this to my son all through middle school. It really messed up my son. Yeah, I mean, my God. Children, especially young ones, say younger than the age of 8 or 9 years old, are constantly in a state of hypnosis. We say about children that they're like sponges. They're always absorbing because they're in a hypnotic state. Hypnosis is a state of hyper-learning, and teachers are authority figures. So what an authority figure says goes more deeply into the subconscious mind than just what a peer, another kid says. And if a teacher is picking on a kid, this is rough. And I don't think the teacher fully understands the impact of the lifelong impact, potentially, of their behavior. And I'm sure you've probably already done this, but if you haven't, and you can talk to the principal, or you can talk to whomever this teacher's supervisor is, and maybe have a group meeting of these adults and raise this point and say, this is a very impressionable age. So much is being laid down right now. The Jesuits said, give me the boy until he's 7 years old and I'll show you the man. And I want things to be different. And I think the more you can, that it can be impressed upon the teacher, the lifetime impact that he or she could be having on your son, the more likely they are to wake up and maybe begin to try to reverse the effects of what they've done. So yeah, I'm really sorry about that, but it is unfortunately all too common. 30-Day Jeff. Hello, 30-Day. I used to be petrified to talk in front of people, and then when I hit around age 22, I can literally talk in front of 2 people or 1,000. So I guess I self-healed. Yeah, I mean, this is very interesting, isn't it? How, okay, so one of the phenomenons is the exact opposite. So sometimes when people hit a certain age, something really nasty kicks off. And in my experience, that generally is, we go into a past lifetime, and lo and behold, at the age of 22 or at the age of 44, something traumatic happened in a past lifetime, and that kicked things off. Why does it go in the other direction? Well, I actually believe that we are always doing work, spiritual work, namely when we're sleeping. So science still doesn't have a perfectly great explanation for why we need to sleep and why we need to sleep for a third of our lives. But spirituality in some venues will teach that we are actually still working on a spiritual level, that sometimes we actually leave our bodies and we're working while we are sleeping. So we also work through dreams. Maybe it's possible that as you were going from when you were petrified to when you suddenly, and did it just happen all at once? Did you just show up one day and someone said, here, I want you to go talk to these people, and it was just perfect all at once? Is that what happened? Or did you have some other experiences, like were you in a play, or did you do Toastmasters, or were you in the military, or were you embarking on a workout campaign? Did your body change dramatically? Maybe that's what happened. So and you can tell us if any of these ring a bell, but maybe when you were petrified, you were a little kid a scrawny little kid or something. And maybe at 22, suddenly like your voice deepened and had deepened and you would become more muscular and you weren't afraid of people in social settings because you weren't small anymore. I'm not saying that's what happened because I don't know you, but these are all possibilities along with spiritual work that you do while you're sleeping. If any of those things ring a bell and you want to let me know, please do. I'd be fascinated. So thanks for sharing that. We've got about 4 more minutes left. And before we go on with another question or two, I just wanted to talk about next week, next Friday Live at 5 is going to be talking about addiction. So this could be, drugs, alcohol, gambling, pornography, shopping, binge watching on television, going to the gym every single day, food I think is the biggest addiction, and junk food and binge eating and so on. So we're going to be talking about that phenomenon that I think is, some people say they have an addictive personality. Well, I think everyone does. I think we all do. And I want to talk about what I think is at the root of being addicted to something. And when you understand what's at the root of it, I think you can understand the things that can be done, the things you can do to get out of it. And I'm not trying to replace your counselors. I'm not trying to replace going to a different kind of outpatient clinic or any of that. I'm not trying to replace any of that. I'm just talking about being an adjunct to it and then maybe helping give some insights from the work I've done over the past 16 years. But this is a fascinating topic for me. I love this topic, and I hope you'll come and join. All right. Let's see. Shay says, I'm a little behind and talking about the teacher humiliating my son. So, but you understand, you're on it, which is awesome. And I think you can get action, especially if you have a formal meeting where you have the teacher, excuse me, and you have, the principal or whomever else that's in a position of authority. And hey, if your son, I don't know if your son is in any kind of counseling or anything at this point, but if he is, you could talk to the counselor and say, would it make sense if you, counselor, were there? Or, what kinds of things should I make sure that I cover? But, good luck to you, because this is, this has been going on too long. Barbara Shopper Doll, you are welcome. She's talking about, I referenced my favorite movie, which is Somewhere in Time. And this is a line. At one point, she calls his name out. I find it super moving. And she says that Jane Seymour, who was the lead actress in the film, was so stunning, and it's a great movie. I couldn't agree more. Got to give the little triangle bell for that one. Let's see. AJ says that she will try that. Cool. Good for you. And let me know if you need, if you get stuck on something and you need a little nudge, set up a free 20-minute call through my website, BlueSkyHypnosis.com, or send me an email or something like that, peter@BlueSkyHypnosis.com, and I'll see if I can help. Let's see. Jamie Brooks says, will do. Cool. And I think that's setting up some kind of an appointment. And Nancy Hoover says, is the hypnosis for surgery labeled that way? I think it is. I think if you go to my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis, and you type that it's like a little magnifying glass and it says search across that channel, and you just type in surgery, that track will come up. Lana McCoy says, used self-hypnosis for hand surgery. Anesthesiologist asked pre-op if they had already medicated me because I was so relaxed. Yeah, this is so cool. 1844, I think, was the first surgery that was conducted with only using hypnosis as anesthesia. So no one is saying that you should only use hypnosis for anesthesia, but if you use it as an adjunct, you can vastly reduce the amount of anesthesia you need and recover faster. So kudos to you, triangle for you. All right. So thank you, folks, for being here. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your comments. As always, I love having you guys here. I think of you as my live at Fiverr tribe, and hope you'll consider coming next week, Friday live at 5 on the 16th, free from addiction. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. Take care.